New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Ali.
Hello and welcome. This is Growing Edge Live, and I'm your host, Ali Benjamin, and I'm so glad that you're here today. We have a special episode. Typically, we have conversations, or I have conversations with soul-centered individuals that are channeling their time, talent, energy, and resources, and their love into doing good works in the world. Today, I'm talking to a person that does that, but what we're actually doing is having an Enneagram Chat, or what I'm reterming Enneagram at the Growing Edge. So today I have my friend and colleague, Michelle Medrano, and we are going to be talking about the Enneagram and love. There she is. Welcome,
Hi.
Michelle. So
Hi.
good to see you.
I love that Enneagram at the Growing Edge. That's fantastic. Good job.
Yeah, I just thought of that, kind of combining what we do every week with the wonderful world of the Enneagram, which you and I have been studying. Well, you have been for many more years than I have been, but we've been in a class together over the last few years and really diving into everything Enneagram. And we're both really enjoying this space of combining what we do, our vocation. We're both ministers, and Michelle is a pulpit minister at a beautiful center in Colorado, and that is the Mile High Center. Is that what is the name of the official name of your organization?
Mile High Church. We've retained the name church, just kept it
Nice.
anyway. So, but it's Mile High Church, a center for spiritual living.
Oh, beautiful. So you are one of the co-leads there, and I founded and lead the Satya Center for Conscious Living here in Utah. So we're kind of close. Colorado and Utah are not too far apart.
At least we're in the same time zone.
Exactly. That really helps when we're doing these Enneagram chats. So
Yes.
today I thought we could talk about love and relationships. Next month is February, and so many people around the globe celebrate Valentine's Day. And so Michelle and I thought it would be fun to dive into relationships through the lens of the Enneagram. And for those of you that are new to the Enneagram is a powerful growth tool based on timeless wisdom. And it breaks down 9 different predominant personality types. And so we're going to dive into each of these personality types to see how they walk the path of love and how they deal with their relationships and the gifts that they bring to the relationships. And maybe if we have enough time, we'll even touch on some of the blind spots and the challenges that each of the types might have in relationship. Now, not everybody's at the same stage or level of personal development. So sometimes we can be in a very healthy place, and sometimes we could be in a stressed out or a place where we're triggered for some reason, especially in relationships.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to also emphasize that sometimes we're better able to bring our best self forward in our relationships. And then other times we may show up and respond or react in unhealthy ways. And so I think understanding our Enneagram, the type that we lead with, can really help us to understand some of those triggers or ways we show up in reactive ways that we don't like about ourselves.
Right.
And so should we dive into the different types? Should we start with type 1?
Sure. Yes, let's do. And I appreciate the way you've described this, because I do think that we go through different phases, and I like how in the Enneagram we can talk about how there's different levels of health with regards to each of the numbers, and sometimes we're caught up in our blind spot or our unconscious self, and therefore we're going to act out some of the elements of that number, and other times we're in a more healthy, grounded state, or we've just gone through some growing. And you're absolutely right. Relationships are the perfect fodder to help us develop and grow if we will embrace them that way, especially romantic relationships.
Oh, yeah, especially.
Yeah.
So I think before we dive into the types, it's also good to notice that, or to consider that all of us, whatever type we are, we're all these human beings doing the best we can in the world. And all of us long to be seen and heard and valued, and know that what we think and feel matters. And so I think that's sort of the common thread with all of us, that we all want to experience deep and meaningful relationships, or fun and lively relationships, or relationships that challenge us in good ways to help us grow. And so I think as we dive into these different personality types, I want everyone to consider that no one's just fixed into a box as far as these personality types, and we describe them. You may see yourself reflected in all of the different types that we talk about today. And I think the goal with the Enneagram and self-development in general is that we start to embrace all the parts that are possible for us. And so anyway, let's dive into the type 1, which there's several different names for the type 1: the improver, or the reformer, or the perfectionist.
Right.
And so these ones are motivated by the need to live their life the right way, including improving themselves and the world around them. They're ethical, reliable, productive, wise, idealistic, fair, honest, orderly, and self-disciplined. That's a little bit of what I have written down here for the ones. And so I'm imagining, and I have a family member that's a type 1, and it can be a bit of a challenge to really connect with the type 1s, because they can have a real strong sense of the way they want things to be. Right. And if things aren't a particular way, they can be kind of busy with that work, whatever it is they're doing, improving or reforming, whatever it is that they perceive isn't right or isn't the way they want it. So I could see that might really hinder a relationship if a 1 is in that space of, oh my God, things aren't right, or oh my God, something's wrong with me or the way I'm showing up, because they have that strong inner critical voice that seems to be the hallmark of the type 1. Do you know any ones? Do you have any friends or family?
I'm married to a 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think you've described it well. And I think that for ones that, you know how we say sometimes in our, as we're talking about children or people or pets, catch them doing something right instead of always pointing out what they do wrong. I think that for a one type person, someone who leads with their one, being in any kind of a relationship or situation where they're always made wrong or always with someone who points out what they're doing wrong would be very debilitating for them. And so I think that a one person needs authentic acknowledgement for what they're doing right. And like all of us, sometimes we have a hard time taking love in because the one can be the perfectionistic person or is always looking to reform or make things better. Sometimes they see themselves or their relationship or situation through what's wrong. And even when I do give some support that's positive, they can't always feel it because they're so focused on what they didn't get right. So if we've done something and I say, wow, you did that really well, it can be batted away. Well, yeah, I did, but look at all these other things that I didn't do right. If they're in their stuff, if they're caught up in their perfectionistic tendencies, which, as we said at the top of the show, you said so eloquently, there might be elements of or more in that or out of that. So it really can depend, and depending on the person and their situation. I also think that romantic relationships are the number one workshop that we can do to heal from our childhood stuff. And so the Enneagram, we believe, happens. You and I become the type we are out of a bit of some genetics and a bit of the family of origin. And so we can use these awarenesses of ourselves, whatever number we are, to understand that when I'm in a relationship, these areas that I'm challenged with are going to get pushed. They're going to get tweaked. They're going to be brought forward. And I'm going to see this about myself or my partner. And part of my work is to see this and go into the deeper realms of health. And so I think a one can feel loved if they let themselves receive people's appreciation, allow themselves to hear and to acknowledge for themselves when they do get something right, when they did do something well, and that can really help a one feel loved and connected.
Yeah, and I think that for ones that are, they can be, high strung, they
Mm-hmm.
can be really focused on doing. They are in
Yes.
the body center. And
Yes.
so maybe some sort of words to soothe or bring them to that place of serenity would be to offer themselves some self-compassion,
Yeah.
to recognize that it's not always about striving and perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And as you was talking, I was thinking about this this statement: what if there's nothing wrong?
Right. Oh my gosh, that's hard for a one to even contemplate, but you're right.
Right, but
That's part of all of us in our numbers have and our growing up, our maturing, and in our self-parenting, if you will, have to learn self-soothing. And that's part of the self-soothing of a one. What if there's nothing wrong? How can I see things more neutrally, that with everything there's that which goes well and that which wasn't so well? There's always elements. Can I bring myself into the neutral zone instead of the polarity of it's all either right or it's all either wrong? Can I be in the pocket of the middle way?
and I imagine, I mean, the one in my life, I would not dare criticize. Like it's never even occurred to me to go down that road with my loved one. And I think for ones, if you're in a relationship with a one, to know that they are their own harshest
Yeah,
critic.
they are.
And
Yeah.
so any whiff or hint that you have a criticism towards them could be really devastating for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so just word to those of you that are in relationships with ones, to be gentle, to be kind and know that they're their hardest critics. So
Right.
we can step back a bit maybe from that.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right. Let's move on to the twos.
Yes.
So the twos are the helpers.
Mm-hmm.
They're motivated by the need to be loved and valued and to express their positive feelings towards others. Loving, caring, adaptable, insightful, generous, enthusiastic, tuned in to how people feel. So twos are, we've switched from ones being in the body center of intelligence to the twos. Now they start up the heart center along with the threes and the fours. So you and me, because you're a 3 and I'm 4. So the twos, and my beloved husband is a type 2. What do you know about twos, Michelle?
Well, twos are often loved and appreciated most for their caring, because they very much care to help and support people. They can be very compassionate and loving, and they have a desire, I think for many twos, the equivalent to love is the desire they have to be needed and to be supported and to be appreciated for their acts of service and their acts of kindness and what they contribute, that they feel loved when people around them are seeing and acknowledging and appreciating their help and the way that they support them. They like to be appreciated for their emotional intelligence, almost kind of like knowing how to help people best, and just to be seen for the contributions that they're making either in the physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual world. And so I think that that's a key thing for twos. They just really are some of the most giving, caring people that we could be in relationship with. In my life, what I have to pay attention to with some of the twos that I connect with is they're so giving and caring, and I don't ever want to take advantage of that. I try really hard to help my two friends and family to have boundaries about how much they are or aren't willing to do or be or give in a situation. But it can be hard because they give themselves away more than any other number. And that's where resentment can really come in, because they do have a pride about how much they give and how much they support. So where a breakdown in love can happen with a two is they might be the person who say, but I spent all weekend taking care of you. Now, can't you take care of me? Because they're so proud of what they've done. And so that can be a challenge for twos.
Yeah, overgiving
Yes.
And sometimes moving into people pleasing, because at the very core of why they're giving, it's based on that need to be loved and
Right.
to be seen as lovable. And sometimes that pride can also move into areas of they think they know what you need more than maybe you need, and so they have this sense that they know best sometimes, and they may offer help even when it's not asked for. And that can be a challenge, I would imagine, especially in personal relationships. If someone is always being over helpful and you haven't asked for that kind of help, then it can also lead to some resentment from your partner. And I think if the two is helpful within the family in general, and I've seen this with my husband, he's so overly helpful, and when people haven't asked for that help, they can feel like it's a bit too much, almost like a smothering energy. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah, and my leading number is a 3, so I will get to the 3s in a minute, but I feel very competent and able to get things done. So there have been times when a 2 is overly helpful, and what comes up for me is, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I can't do that for myself?
Right.
Almost this resentment about, why are you helping me when I can do this on my own? And so that can create conflict too, because twos, like you say, just, well, she probably would like my help with this. No, I didn't ask.
Exactly.
So I have to often step back and say, oh, that's right. That person is a 2. They're trying to share their love with me. To them, being loving means helping me. And maybe I could just receive it that way and not take it as an offense or a sense of over smothering kind of thing. Mhm.
Right. And then there's kind of the opposite that can happen if there's someone within the family unit or friend circle that is a taker,
Yes.
and not someone like you that's very independent and wants to do things for themselves, but they can learn to overly depend on that too.
Yes.
And that can be very unhealthy too, because if the relationship, that could cause the relationship some issues.
Mhm.
And if the 2 is busy with their own life for some reason and doesn't give you the attention that you're accustomed to, that could also create waves within the relationship.
Absolutely.
So I think, like you mentioned, for the 2s, a way of deepening self-compassion is to honor boundaries
Yes.
and to develop your own boundaries, especially, and to develop some self-awareness, because I think a lot of 2s, they know so well what other people want, but do they really know what they need or want?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I know that was the case for Michael. For many years, he would always put himself at the bottom of the list.
Right.
And
Right.
so, that can cause unconscious resentment too, because everyone else is getting their love cup filled and you're not even able to identify what would fill your love cup. So I think that understanding as a 2, understanding what you want, and if you're a partner of a 2, making sure you ask them, what is it you want? Can i
Mhm.
can i help you? What would
Mhm.
make you feel more loved?
Right.
So that might be helpful.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So should we move on to 3s? And
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
the 3 in this space. So why
Yeah.
don't you talk about 3s a little bit?
Well, type 3s generally are accomplishers, are achievers. They're often called the performer, the achiever. Uh, they um, they love to be successful, and I know that for me, and I think a lot of 3s I've connected to, um, feeling as though I've failed someone or failed at something can be very devastating for me. And I will imagine that people don't love me if I failed them or failed at something I said I would do for them, that sort of thing. And so sometimes 3s can be very sensitive about that and may need to be supported and lifted up. Not that we want to be or should be in denial that we failed, but to me, one of the greatest acts of love that someone could give me is to look me in the eye and say, yeah, you didn't do that very well, and I still love and adore you, and it's okay. I really need that kind of encouragement when I failed or I've not met the mark of something. And so at the same time, I know that I do feel loved when people acknowledge things I've done, or acknowledge successes I've had. And yet, I feel as I've grown more and developed more, I feel the most loved when I risk and am my authentic self, and I risk and share myself, and that I also can feel loved in that. Because we 3s can fall totally into the trap of, I only feel loved when people are acknowledging for my gifts and my talents and my skills and what I've done, for my victories and for my ambitions. And we can get really caught up in, oh, they see me and they love me and acknowledge me for all this good. And that can kind of feel like love. But I think it's kind of a fake love, and that we 3s have to really pay attention and say, I need to be loved for myself, and that part of what I can do is really show up in my relationships, even in my broken self. It's like it was a big deal for me at one point. I know this may sound crazy, to be with a lover or a partner and not be all made up and dressed up, to be with no makeup and my hair's a mess and I'm in casual clothes. That was very vulnerable for me, because I always want to put my best foot forward. I always want to be seen in my best light, if you will. And it's just in maturing that I've kind of let that go. And so nowadays, to go out with no makeup on in public or go out in my casual clothes, it's a badge of acknowledgement for myself that I can be me and it's okay. So
Yes,
mhm.
it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it must be a real challenge. And I have a sister that's a 3. You've met my sister.
Yes.
Because a lot of the way they 3s show love can be very wrapped up in what they do. Like
Right.
they do things for their loved ones.
Right. What
And
I do
so,
versus who I am. Right.
right. And
Mhm.
so I think if you're in a partnership with a 3, it's important to know that that they may not their love is so wrapped up in what they may be doing that you may not feel the love on the for me as a 4 it's I love
Yes.
quality time. And
Mhm.
so to spend time with my 3 loved one requires my 3 loved one to slow down a bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that you
Yes.
might, if you're in a relationship with a 3, really encourage them to slow down a bit and connect with you in an authentic way, so you can express and feel that genuine connection that is beyond what they're doing or what
Right.
they've achieved.
Right.
Because whilst that's very important, not only to the 3 but and to the loved one, there's depth to who the 3 is that can sometimes get missed because they're moving so quickly.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Good
So
insights.
I think we should take a break
Okay.
because
That
we're
sounds
at the bottom of the hour here.
great. Yes.
And so we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series, January 31st through April 4th. Embrace nonviolence every day with our 64 unique video meditations. Join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Featuring a collection of New Thought voices, the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series. Only on New Thought Media Network. January 31st through April 4th.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Here's Allie.
We're back with Enneagram at the Growing Edge with Michelle and me, Allie, and we're diving into type 4. And I'm a type 4 on the Enneagram. And so type 4s are artistic, creative, sensitive, looking for that emotional depth in things.
Yes.
And so it can be a challenge to be in relationships with 4s. I have several 4 friends. And we're not for the faint of heart. We can be pretty, pretty intense. And so,
deep.
yeah. And your mother's a 4.
Yes.
And she's our teacher.
Right.
So, what have you learned about being in a relationship with a 4? Seeing she's the one you've been in relationship with the longest.
My sense of most 4s I've encountered, including my mother and you, is that 4s feel very loved and honored when you share your authentic truth with them. They can sense BS, and they don't that if I want to get distance from a 4, if I do my little 3-ly perfection thing and I'm not that deep, that a 4 will distance themselves from me at times because they don't trust, because they crave that authentic, deep connection, and that they also feel most loved when we can be with 4s and let them express themselves, offer emotional support, creating a safe space for them to be themselves and express themselves too. So they're going to gravitate in love towards people that feels loving to, I think, 4s. You'll have to tell me, but I think 4s feel most loved when they feel in the space of another person who they can just be themselves with, and they know it. And there's a sense of unconditional acceptance of them. That's really important for 4s.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, as I have been looking at the love languages as well, the 4s long for that time, one-on-one time,
Right.
and there's also something to note with the 4s that they can be very overly identified with their emotions.
Yes.
So sometimes it's good for me as a 4 to just take a breath and to stop thinking that there's something missing in regards to the relationship, because I can really get a sense that, oh, well, these other people seem to have this going on, or that great peaceful or exciting relationship, and why don't I have that? And sometimes I overlook what I do have.
Right.
And it's a habit, because I've got so much to be grateful for. I have a loving husband and I've got an amazing family, but sometimes there's that sense that there's something missing. And so for the 4, it's to count your blessings.
Yes.
Ride that emotional wave, and don't push people away when you're in that space, even though it's tempting sometimes to do that. So anything else about 4s? I know we left a lot more on this side of the half hour than we did on the first side of the half hour. So should we just dive into 5s?
Yeah, let's jump forward. Let's keep moving forward.
Okay. Well, 5s are motivated by the need to know and understand everything, to be self-sufficient and avoid looking foolish. They're analytical, persevering, sensitive, wise, objective, and self-contained. So the 5s, and I know you have a 5 that's close to you, 5s can be the most introverted on the whole spectrum of the Enneagram, and they can really be a little stingy with their time, energy, and resources sometimes, because they get overwhelmed if they're in the fray or in the busyness of the world, or have too much emotional drain on them, or people expecting too much of them. How have you handled being in a supportive role in your relationship with your 5?
Well, 5s, as you said, they're very conscious of the resources, and what we've learned about them in the Enneagram, it's time, money, energy. And so I know that A 5 doesn't feel loved if their boundaries are violated. So if you take too much of their time or attempt to take too much of their energy, take too much of the resources that they hold to be true. So I think loving a 5 includes honoring their boundaries. If they say they don't have time for you today, not to take it personally, to understand that because they are the more introverted, or they gain energy by pulling away from things at times, that's a huge need that they have. And so honoring their space, honoring their need for quiet, not trying to force them into environments that they don't feel comfortable in, which can be challenging because sometimes that's just regular life, and a little 5 needs to be outside of the bounds of regular life. And so finding ways to support them and help them feel loved is important. And they also, 5s often have a keen intellect and a keen way of they're proud of their intelligence and the knowledge that they have. And I think they feel loved when acknowledged for what they know, or the things that they have brought to different situations that have contributed positively, their unique perspectives and things like that. That if someone who loves a 5, they're always listening for their expertise and acknowledging them for it, I think.
Mm. Yeah, so maybe for someone that's in a relationship with someone that leads with type 5, to make sure that you create the space for them to have their alone time.
Yes.
And so maybe it's about scheduling time,
Yes.
being more deliberate or intentional about the time you spend together.
Yeah,
That
and
would,
understanding that a 5 is the challenge is that when the 5 goes away, if you're another number other than a 5, you might feel abandoned, especially if you're a 4. They want to be away from me, and I'm gonna feel abandoned by that. But when we start to understand the typology a little more clearly, we can start to see that a 5, when they go away, they're rejuvenating their energy, and then they can come back and be present, and that
yeah.
it's just the way they're kind of built, and that it's okay.
And I have a brother that's a 5, and
Mm.
he's particularly sensitive to big energy.
Yes,
And high
yes,
emotions. And so
yes.
that can be just something to watch for. Not that we all have to shape shift and alter ourselves to be with our loved ones like this, but I think it's good to just know.
Yes,
Too much
yes.
big energy is very draining.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, good.
So should we dive into the 6s, the
Let's talk about the 6.
loyalists?
Yeah, the loyalist, yes.
Yeah, so 6s are motivated by the need for security. There's 2 types of 6s that are generally talked about. The phobic 6, they're outwardly fearful and they seek a lot of approval and security. Then there's the counterphobic 6, which they like to confront their fears head on. Both of these aspects can appear in the same person. They're loyal, likable, caring, warm, compassionate, witty, helpful, and responsible. So
Mhm.
6s are the ones that really welcome, relationships, and they have a lot of energy and time for cultivating relationships. And I think they're also focused on making sure everything's safe and secure
Mhm.
within their
Mhm.
relationships. So they're very dependable, and they think about the future and what might be occurring or coming up that they have to prepare for. So I think when you're in a relationship with a 6, you have to be mindful that they can be quite high strung too, and be on the lookout for things that might go wrong. And so that could be a little abrasive with some other, the Enneagram personality types. But I think
Yes.
awareness is everything. When
Yes.
we know this about people, then it's easier to address these things in a, heart-centered, compassionate way. Do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have 6s? Anyone in your world that you are in relationship with?
I do have some 6s in my life, and my sister is now deceased, but she was a 6. So
Mm,
I know about being in relationship with a 6. And I think a lot of what you're talking about comes down to, especially in love, with a 6, especially romantic relationships, security is so important. Them feeling safe and that they're in a safe relationship. And it may take them a while to commit or to really show up because they want to understand that it's going to be safe for them. And so they need safe, reliable people who can provide a sense of safety and belonging for them to really feel and really fall into love, to really let themselves step into love will mean that they need to feel absolutely secure. And they may never feel absolutely secure. And hopefully they are aware enough of this typology that they can talk it out with their partner, saying, I'm not feeling safe right now, or I'm not feeling secure about our future, or I'm not feeling secure about our finances. That's the kind of things that will come up, I think, in relationship for 6s. That for other types, it might be like, why are they always bringing up our money issues? Or why are they talking about retirement when we're only 20? Or why are they? It's because they have that gift and skill and that need to be looking down the road for things that might happen that involve the relationship, for sure.
Yeah, and I think for a 6, really one of the best gifts they can give themselves is to really start to develop a sense of trusting themselves
Yeah.
and like manifesting or nurturing that courage that they have within themselves, if they give themselves time to just quiet and meditate and ground in and center themselves, because it can be challenging to be in a friendship or a relationship with someone that's always talking about what could go wrong, or always be on high alert like that. So I think if you are in a relationship with a 6, maybe to really encourage that meditative state of being comfortable and trusting yourself right where you are. Yeah. So should we jump into 7s?
Yes, let's do.
So the enthusiast, these 7s are motivated by the need to be happy and plan enjoyable activities to contribute to the world and to avoid pain and suffering. They're fun-loving, spontaneous, imaginative, productive, enthusiastic, charming, curious. And they too are in the head type. They are a head type. And so they, even though it sounds all fun and enthusiastic, they too have some fear of maybe things not being exciting enough, or fear around things becoming stale or heavy emotions. So they'll try and avoid that by doing and going and planning. So what could be some valuable things to share with 7s, or those that are in relationship with a 7?
Well, in my experience, I was married to a 7, a really wonderful man who was a 7, and he was all that you said. He loved adventure, loved if we had choices, loved spontaneous. Hey, let's go do this, and what about that? Really loved all that, and could feel very challenged and confronted with heavy emotional stuff or things that were sad or difficult to deal with. And so I think that it can help if a 7 feels that they're with someone who understands them and supports them, encourages their passions, encourages their spontaneous energy, and also can be a safe, loving person to help them navigate those deeper waters of when things are hard, or when things are emotional, or when things are difficult, and also can just bless their efforts. I mean, Brad and I learned to do, my ex-husband and I learned to do something that really, it may sound kind of innocuous, but it really helped us when we would travel. Sometimes when we would travel, I would just be exhausted and want to go on a trip where I could just rest. And of course, as a 7, he wants to get where we're going and go see everything right now. And so we would talk about this difference in our experience and came up with a plan together that really worked for us, where I would say, you go explore for as long as you want. Come back and tell me the top 3 things you think I would love, and then I'll go with you to those things, because I didn't have that same need. And that worked for us. So being able to understand and not make the 7 wrong for that adventuresome energy. And of course, being willing to join them on their adventures. I think that 7s really feel loved when you do that.
Yeah. I can imagine with all that heightened sort of imagination and curiosity, that 7s could be challenging within a relationship, because they may jump from thing to thing to thing. They may not have a lot of energy for following through or completing things. So that could potentially be somewhere that a partner could support them in having them, well, let's finish this project, or let's you know, tie up the loose ends here before we go on to the next thing. And like with the 6s, I think it developing a practice of just being and tuning into what's happening now might be a bit of a challenge for the 7, but I think it would be helpful in a way of having, let's say you have a relationship with someone that isn't a 7 or a 6, but there would be an opportunity to stay more focused and present within the relationship. There could be things to do around maintaining and establishing connection for just who both of you are, rather than what you're doing. Could apply to the 3 as well, or the 2.
Course.
It could to all of us. Yeah.
But a 7 will make your life exciting and adventurous for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So 8s, we're moving back into the body center types. So 8 is the challenger or the protector. Some call it the controller. And 8s are motivated by the need to be self-reliant, strong, and to avoid feeling weak or dependent. They're direct. They are loyal, energetic, earthy, protective, and self-confident, and a little controlling. So 8s. My dad, I believe, was an 8.
Oh, okay.
And he had that kind of, he would be very protective, but he also demanded that because it was just him and I, when I was little. My mother left when I was 5, so it was just him and I. And he would always quietly demand that I be self-reliant. Like he didn't like me to be too clingy or too overly, asking for emotional connection. It was always, the emphasis would be on self-reliance and, developing my own sense of the way of the world.
Sure.
And so I think it might be hard to be in a relationship with an 8 if you don't really understand their energy. And some 8s can have really big energy and be very confrontive and combative sometimes. And
Bossy.
I think bossy, and it can be a way for them. They don't see it the same way that the rest of us do. We might see that as being aggressive, when they see it as being really invested and really caring. And so they may show love in ways that the rest of us might feel like stepping back a bit, but it's their way of showing their love. Have you experienced love or connection with an 8?
I have, and I've been surprised at the way that the 8s I've encountered in my life really feel loved if I match their energy, if I go toe to toe with them, whereas they don't feel loved if they challenge me, or they have an idea, or they've got some passion and I shirk or become small or fall into a state of lack of power for myself, whether it be questioning myself or whatever. 8s can be, as you've said, they like that power energy. They can be so assertive, and they want to be acknowledged for that, and they want to be respected. They want their boundaries respected, and they also really do appreciate, in my experience, honest and direct communication and feedback. And if they come at you with their high energy and you go right back at them with high energy, I think they'll respect you more than if you shrink and become small because of their energy. They feel loved in that kind of conversation, which can be very counterintuitive, because if someone has big energy in our culture, a lot of times many of the other numbers will think, oh my gosh, that's too big for me. But if you love an 8, or you're in a relationship with an 8, just know that's part of how they feel loved, is for you to meet their energy and to be with them in the bigness of it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, they like that kind of authenticity. And it's not
Yes.
always easy to, like you said, we shrink back a little bit sometimes in the presence of that energy, but to lean in and to connect with them. I think what I have found with the 8s in my life is they have this really tough exterior, but commonly they're quite soft in the center.
Yes. That's a
And
good point. Good point. Yes.
yeah, and there can be great depth and connection
Mhm.
when you understand the energy of an 8.
Mhm. Yeah.
So let's move on to our final one that we're discussing today of the 9, which is type 9, the
Yes.
peacemaker. So
Yes.
9s are motivated by the need to keep the peace, to merge with others, and to avoid conflicts, sometimes at all costs. Since they especially take on the qualities of all the other 8 types, 9s may have a lot of different variations in their personality, from gentle and mild-mannered to independent and forceful. So 9s, do you have 9s in your world?
Definitely. Definitely. My stepfather was a 9, and I've got some good friends who are 9s. Absolutely. How about you? Do you have some 9s?
Yeah, one of my partners, my minister partner, was a 9,
Mhm.
and they definitely fit into this, this description here. Sometimes it can be tricky because they don't speak up. They don't share what they're thinking. They do a lot of time of absorbing what's going on around them. One thing that would always make me chuckle was they wouldn't speak up. They wouldn't give a lot of input sometimes. And then the following day or the following week, they would, at a meeting or something like that, they would present the idea that I had the couple of weeks prior to that, as though it was their idea. And I'm like, what? But I learned to go along with that and allow that to be their contribution. So
Yeah.
sometimes I think in relationship with 9s, we have to develop a sense of they are taking in a lot of what's going on around them. They may be quiet, they may not share their opinions, their judgments, and this and that, but they are having them. And they may be a little bit more passive aggressive in that way of, you may not know exactly where you stand with them, like with the 8s, for instance. But if you can stay present with them and learn the depth and their rhythm and their flow, look a bit like the 5s, there's a definite beauty and peace that emerges in relationship with the 9s, because they really do have a great sense of how the world works, because they're always taking it in. They're always processing what they're experiencing. And if they've done their self-work, they'll get to a point where they're able to express their opinions and their judgments and all of that. But I think
Mhm.
that's something a partner could help nurture and bring out in their 8 loved one.
Yeah.
I mean, their 9 loved one, excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's all very true, spoken very well, and I think a 9, being the peacemaker, will always want to do their best to bring peace. And what I think has to be watched out for in a 9 relationship is that depending on how desperate they are to make peace, they may not be authentic. And so, like a 4 or another number who has a relationship with a 4, or has that BS meter might feel frustrated by a 9 who's simply trying to create peace, but might be doing so in somewhat an inauthentic way, because they're so good at figuring out, well, what we need here is someone needs to say, it's going to be fine. And then that other number goes, how do you know that? Or whatever that conversation might look like. But creating peace and bringing forth peace is a huge motivation for them. And so that's a gift and can also be a curse if they try to do it too hard. They're also really great listeners, I think. A lot of 9s are very good listeners because they can really be present. And as long as they can feel accepted for who they are without any judgment and feel harmony in their relationships, they can be very charming and sweet and wonderful to be in life with.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Well, we're here at the end of our whole Enneagram symbol. We've covered all the types, and I hope that whatever your type is, whatever type you lead with is, and whomever you're in relationship with, I hope that what we've shared today has brought some awareness to you about how you move and groove and how your loved ones move and groove. And thank you so much, Michelle, for being here again to have this Enneagram chat at the Growing Edge.
My pleasure. It's been a blast. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. And to you, our viewers, thank you for being here today. And we'll be back next week. And we'll be with a whole different Enneagram type. It's a surprise. I won't tell you now. But next week, our guest will definitely delight and inspire you. So thank you for being here. If you need support in any way, just know we're here at the Satya Center. And thank you to our beautiful producer, Michael, and the New Thought Media Network. And we'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing